Hello and welcome to lesson 3 of the Preparatory Piano Tutor Book. In this lesson we've got 3 teaching aims to have a look at. So the first teaching aim is to learn about intervals. The second teaching aim is to learn about the natural sign. And the third teaching aim is to learn about the dotted crotchet. So without any ado, let's go straight into the interval section. So an interval is a space between 2 notes, or the difference in pitch between 2 notes. And so you've got here a whole set of intervals with the C note at the bottom. So here you've got your second, then your third. You can see there's 1, 2, 3, see? Then your fourth, 1, 2, 3, 4. Then your fifth, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Then your sixth, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And then finally your seventh, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So what you've got to do first is a written task where you're asked to identify what these intervals are and write in the box here what interval you have. So count them in the same way and you'll be fine. Then at the bottom of the page it explains that when you get a 4th interval or a 5th interval or an 8th, an octave, then they're all called perfect intervals. Now over the page here you've got the same set of intervals again, but this time you're asked to identify which ones are perfect. All the other intervals are either going to be major. So if you look at them, any that are 4th, 5th and octaves you write as perfect, and then the others you write as major. Moving on to the second area that we're going to talk about today, which is the dotted crotchet. So remember, I explained to you before in previous books that when you have a dot at the side of a note, it makes the note half as long again. And we had a look at the minim and we put a dot on the minim to make the dotted minim, which was 3 counts. Now we're doing exactly the same now with the dotted crotchet. So the crotchet's worth 1 count, so if you put a dot against it, it's going to be worth 1.5 counts. Now because of that, you will find that quite regularly you're going to have a quaver note next to the dotted crotchet, mainly because 1.5 plus 1/2 makes 2 counts. And this example here in Alouetta has actually got that in it. Now you've got to be careful here with your reading because you do have your dotted crotchet, but you've also got staccato notes. So just make sure you don't mix the 2 up. Remember, staccato is above or below the note, which means to play the note short. Okay, so here we go with the Alouetta. Now listen carefully to the dotted crotchet rhythm, because I always find in my head it's a good idea to think of the word auntie. Okay, so if you get it with 2 crotchets afterwards, think of it as Auntie Betty. That's the way I do it anyway. And I find it very useful to actually have that, and then rhythmically you always tend to make the notes right. So here we are. Here's a performance of Alouetta. So the more astute people out there will have noticed that I did something quite unusual on the quavers. And I played the quavers in jazz terms to what's called the swing rhythm. Now with a piece like this, it feels natural to actually do that. That's absolutely fine. But if you want to play it with straight quavers as well, that's also fine. So I'm going to play the performance now with straight quavers in, and you can decide which way you prefer. Both of them are okay. So moving on over the page now, and the next section we're going to have a look at is to do with a natural sign. So sometimes in music you have what's called an accidental. Now an accidental, when that's put in the music, cancels any previous sharps or flats that have been in the music before. So if you have a look at the piece in the book, which is called Butterflies in My Tummy, you will notice that it's got as its key signature an F sharp because it's in the key of G. But if you look very closely at bar 2, you will notice you've got a natural sign. So that means instead of playing the F sharp, you play F natural. But the natural sign doesn't last long, because if you pop down to the left hand, it changes to an F sharp and then goes back to an F natural. So this is a piece where you've got to read the accidentals very, very carefully. And again, I would suggest doing a little bit of separate hand practice on this, so you get used to reading all these new accidentals. The other thing to watch out for with this piece as well is that in the very last bar, the music pops down to the B below middle C. So just be careful there that you don't play that note wrong. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to play this piece separate hands first, so you can watch very closely where all the accidentals are and how I cope with playing the naturals against the sharps. So here's the right hand first. Move down to here, you see. Okay, so did you see how I put my finger and my thumb just one more further note down, so you've got yourself in B position there at the end. Okay, now here's for your left hand now. F sharp to begin with in the first bar. Let's play it both hands together now. Finally, the last piece that we've got here is a piece called Dotted Crotchet Blues. So you'll see in this piece you'll have another go at trying to play the dotted crotchet rhythm, but there's also another opportunity to have a look at all your accidentals and play them through. You'll see you've got extra sharps written in as accidentals, but you've also got at bar 9 naturals as well. So I'd recommend as well to play this separate hands through first, then try and put it together. And that completes all of lesson 3.